P was down for a good portion of the day. We ended up positive. The Dow ended up flat. A bottoming tail in the daily time frame, a hammer-looking candlestick. It ended up just under 16 points, ended flat. S&P ended up 0.16% higher, up just over 8.5 points. NASDAQ was up 0.5%. The Russell was down just over 0.2%. The VIX was also down 2.26% to close just above 12.5. Again, trend signals remain bullish. Momentum remains bullish. We're trying to bounce off the 10 period with the S&P 500. We continue to have red awesome oscillator bars. The MACD is not yet rolled over. So what I'll be watching is if we get traction off the 10 period, form a divergence on the 60-minute chart, on the daily chart. Do we see green bars on the awesome oscillator appear and form a divergence? Maybe with the PCE data at Powell's speech early next week. And my signals remain bullish, but we have negative divergences in the weekly time frame, multiple negative divergences in the monthly time frame. These divergences are going to play out and suggesting see a reversal soon. Again, I thought we'd go up higher and hit that upper boundary of the channel, and we're overthrew it. We overthrew it. Watching to see if our high from last Thursday holds or if we form a divergence and then start to reverse, completing those divergences in the weekly time frame. We could see a green bar or two. We try to get a rally, break out of our bull flag pattern on the S&P and NASDAQ, and try to rally with the PCE data. So I'll be watching the awesome oscillator here and the RSI in the daily time frame along with the 60-minute chart. Signals remain bullish. Momentum remains bullish. We've started the week off last week with a red bar. We didn't close that way. We've started it off this week with the red bar. We still have it, but it looks like by the end of the week it may go away. Again, this is a weekly chart. You only get one bar per week. You can clearly see the divergences that are forming on the awesome oscillator and the MACD, and as well as the RSI could be coming to a conclusion, or well, could be a little higher and could put the finishing touches on it. This is showing that momentum is possibly starting to wane with the two red bars that we've gotten now. This week it disappeared. Here we have it. We'll see if we close with it. P weekly chart. That has the same divergences. Again, awesome oscillator, MACD. This is telling us a reversal's coming. We got that topping tail in the form of a gravestone doji, but we have not yet seen a red bar yet like we have with the S&P 500. I'll be watching to see if the gravestone doji high holds. Candlesticks are meaningless unless they are confirmed and validated. Establish a lower high this week, or may back-to-back reversal candlesticks. If the PCE data for some reason is hotter than expected, then again, the scenario would be that the highs still hold, but we need to start seeing signals turn bearish. If that is going to be the case, we have not yet seen that. And we have the bull flags on those 60-minute charts. NASDAQ already broke out. S&P broke out today. Okay, momentum continues to be bullish for NASDAQ. Again, I'll be watching to see if it forms a divergence or a lower high. I'll be looking for green bars, possible green bars surrounding the PCE data come Friday. Maybe sooner if we try to form it. We'll be watching to see if that does in fact form or not. If we sell off with the PCE, comes in hotter, then which it's not expected to, but if it does, again, then maybe we go lower without getting green, but then we need to see signals flip, momentum flip to bearish. Right now, momentum remains bullish, above these 10-period moving averages. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the indicators, you like the charts, let me know that by supporting the channel. If you could take a moment to do that, I would really appreciate it. I just put it out there for free and ask that you do what you can to help out. I don't have any sponsors. I do need your help in order to make it work. So if you can step up to the plate and help out right now, I would really, really appreciate that. I thank you for your consideration for that. Momentum and the trend continues to be bullish for the S&P 500. In the daily time frame, momentum is bullish. The trend is bullish. S&P is going to turn. We've got to see momentum flip. We have not seen that. And I told you if that does not happen, we can go form the divergence on the 60-minute chart. Signals remain bullish. The S&P intraday, we saw momentum turn bearish, but the trend really remained neutral as we pull back and got the bull flag that is now broken out. We'll see if it's a legitimate breakout or fake out. Momentum shifted back to bullish today. The S&P 500, again, we start higher, you can form a divergence. It's the highs with the lower high, but momentum is back to bullish. We'll see if it can continue, and if it does, will the trend signal turn back to bullish here? The intraday chart for the S&P 500. Momentum has remained bullish in the daily time frame along with the trend. Same thing for the NASDAQ daily chart. Again, momentum remains bullish here, and the trend remains bullish. Reversals to start, we need to see momentum shift. Watching the topping tail high in the weekly time frame, the rally continues. I told you yesterday that on the S&P intraday, we saw momentum here turn back to bullish with the momentum line. Remains bullish for today's session, and again, we attempted to get a breakout of the bull flag pattern. Got to get above this 54.85 area in order to officially flip the trend. We got bullish signal, momentum flipped, momentum signal slipping back and forth here as we hop above and below the line, which is going back and forth from blue to red. And then again, momentum line now pushing above that level. Gray area is telling us something big is getting ready to happen. That's likely going to be a move higher. And with the last bar, background flip back to green. So again, I think we're probably going to have an upward resolution with that breakout, as I've said. Their bull flag pattern and probably upper end of the channel and try to form a divergence. When we hit the peak over here, we got sell signals, the shift in momentum. Here the trend did shift on the intraday chart, but again, we didn't even see momentum shift in the daily time frame. So again, I still think you got a good shot of going to that upper channel line as I've talked about. Some things turning bullish here. Momentum remains bullish. And again, we got to just be able to clear this level. You do that, then we'll flip the trend intraday. Momentum signals are already bullish. Again, we're getting green bars. You got the momentum line back to blue. You're getting above this line representing the trend, and the background is going back to green, showing momentum is up, and maybe we're about to get a bullish buy signal. At the sell signal, we start seeing the weakness over here. You got the red bar, you started getting the sell signal. The sell signal showing up here. We'll see what happens here. Bullish signal has to be validated with a flip in the trend with the push above this line right here. Intraday, we'll see if that happens tomorrow. S&P 500 intraday. Daily time frame, we still have the momentum line blue. We still have green bars reflecting positive momentum. Trend is still bullish. The cloud, we're still above this line right here. So again, trend signals remain bullish. The momentum signals remain bullish. We'll see if that changes. But again, the door is open. Possible divergence now. We may see it on a lot of different indicators, like right here with momentum. It might turn back up and that we get a divergence. If the peak from last Thursday is going to hold, we have to start seeing momentum shift. It's not taking place, and we're bouncing off the 10-period moving average. S&P daily here. Now we did see momentum flip right here with the momentum line, but the bars still reflecting the trend or reflecting momentum are still green, and momentum line is kind of going flatlined right here in the daily time frame. We did get warning signs of a top here and here. We did not get that with the S&P 500. Again, it is possible they diverge from one another. It's possible these signals, though, are just warning of a pullback, and we still go try to make a divergence, a higher high. But it is what it is. Momentum line did turn bearish. It is going flatlined. If it remains that way, does it quickly turn back to bullish and we try to go higher? Or, again, is it suggesting we might see a possible lower high? We'll be watching. Here with momentum, the arrow, we had that turned down yesterday. It's turning back up today. So, again, really just kind of we're going sideways here with the sell-off that we've had. It's not flipped the trend yet. We'll be watching to see if the rally can continue with momentum flipping here. And if so, how high does NASDAQ go? Now, I've been talking about this bull flag that's been setting up at support levels. Again, we haven't seen momentum flip to bearish. In the daily time frame, it's remained bullish. And I told you, again, going into the PCE data here, maybe with the PCE, we could get this divergence on the RSI in the 60-minute time frame. We had it break out the last 10 minutes of trading. We had the Micron technology earnings right after the bell. Had this breakout and then more volatility after hours because Micron technology tanked immediately, down over 8%. Might have been more than that. When I looked at it, it was 8%. Then it attempted to rebound and then dropped back down to about 7.5% a moment ago when I looked at it just before starting the video here. But we had a breakout here. Is it a breakout or a fake out? Again, I told you we could still come down to this lower end of this channel that is a potential bull flag. But if we have a breakout, again, maybe we just back test and then go on our way and try to rally going into the PCE data or with the PCE data, the inflation data. But I'm continuing to watch this RSI here in the 60-minute time frame and in the daily time frame. I've talked about both of those time frames with the RSIs possibly getting a divergence. We saw the MACD try to firm up here with the bounce that we got here at support, horizontal support area. Again, we had dropped below the 50 period. That's a green line right there. Got back above it and then kind of danced around it, closed above it by the end of the session, breaking out the last 10 minutes of trading. And we could get a larger divergence. We did have one here with these two peaks with the MACD. It could be that we get another one here, come up and turn back down. If we try to rally with the PCE data, I've talked about a divergence developing on these RSIs in the 60-minute time frame, daily time frame. We don't have to get a divergence, but it certainly could. If we have a legitimate breakout here, or if we even throw back and the channel line changes a little bit and throw back into the lower boundary and then break out, or if we have the breakout right here, right now, and we move to a new high, I think we're going up to the upper boundary of the channels that I've talked about. Told you with the break of this trend line, you had to start dropping below the cloud, below the 50 here. We're bouncing off the 50, actually move back and start taking out the 200 down over here and see the MACD go negative. The MACD is firming up at the center line here, went slightly negative, and then it's turning right back up. So again, did not shift bearish with this whole move, and now on the intraday time frame trying to flip back to bullish. If we have a legitimate breakout here and we go higher and we move to take out this peak over here with our bull flag pattern, again, I've talked about these channels. Again, I have one in red that is from this low here and this low here, this high, and again, we could go to that high and form it. I have another channel from the low here and the low here, and again, if we just draw a parallel boundary connecting this peak here and this peak here, then you have potentially level we might reach if we do move to a new high with that upper channel line with the blue channel here, and that would also upper boundary of the rising wedge, again excluding these lows over here in the daily time frame. You have a really nice looking rising wedge that I've talked about. If we have now a legitimate breakout of our bull flag pattern, again, and we've had a series of bull flag patterns, if we now have a legitimate breakout, then again we could be headed to one of these trend lines for the channel on the S&P. If it can make a new high, this is where we're likely headed. And if we are headed there, then we're likely going to form a divergence on the RSI at one of these levels. We be able to continue there and have a legitimate breakout. Breakout of the bull flag today. Again, yesterday we saw momentum reach extremes here in the 60-minute time frame and it firm up. It continued. Now we're in the positive region. Again, if we have a legitimate breakout, we'll get a formation of follow through, and I expect that we're probably going to one of these trend lines that I've been talking about. Momentum did hit extremes. It did turn up, and now we're attempting to bounce off the 50 period moving average on the 60-minute time frame, horizontal support, and trying to break out of a bull flag. Doing it ahead of the PCE data. After the PCE data, we'll have Powell's speech and the FOMC minutes next week. With the S&P ahead of the last 10 minutes of trading ahead of the Micron technology earnings, and again Friday's PE data that will be announced ahead of the market opening, the opening bell. Technology shares slide after revenue forecast fails to top estimates. Again, as I said, it fell about 8%, attempted a rebound, and I looked at it, it was down about 7.5%. They still beat earnings per share and beat on revenue And that created some volatility with futures right after the closing bell, after we got that breakout after hours trading. What things look like tomorrow going into the PCE announcement. Now here it is. The last time I looked at it was down 7.56%, was down 8%. Let me refresh this. Currently attempting a little bit of a recovery, down 5.86%. Still taking a hit there in after hours. We'll see what it looks like tomorrow's session, and we have a breakout or a fake out there with the S&P and our bull flag. Tomorrow we'll get the second revision for Q1 GDP, which is expected to come in at 1.4%. We'll get durable goods. Home sales Friday, we'll get the PCE inflation data, which is expected to come in cool. It's supposed to be flat here for the headline number on the CPE month over month. It's supposed to be 0.1% year over year. The headline number is supposed to come in lower at 2.6. The headline number below the previous reading. For the estimate, the year over year for the core is supposed to come in at 2.6 and previously at 2.8. So it's supposed to be a cool report. Remember, CPI come in cooler. We get the May data for the PCE, and that is likely to be cooler. So again, we could get that divergence on the P500. Topping tail on the NASDAQ in the weekly time frame the previous week. I'll be watching to see if that high holds. NASDAQ makes a lower high and S&P goes higher. You'll get another divergence forming if S&P make new highs. Again, I told you I think there's a good chance that happens. We go up and hit one of those upper channel lines that I've been talking about. We're going to have a short trading week next week, but with the Independence Day holiday on the 4th of July, but we're going to get the FOMC minutes the day before on July 3rd, ahead of the Independence holiday. Prior to those minutes being released on Wednesday, on July 3rd, on Tuesday, we're going to have Fed Chair Powell speaking during the market session, making a speech. So again, be paying attention to Fed Chair Powell on Tuesday, the FOMC minutes next Wednesday, short trading week with the 4th of July Independence holiday. After the 4th of July, we'll get the jobs report on that Friday with our short trading week. So just some things to have on the radar. Powell's going to be speaking next week. You're going to get the FOMC minutes Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you'll have the jobs report on Friday. Following the PCE inflation data come this Friday. Now we got a little topping tail at the last 5-minute bar of trading here. Again, we had the breakout, the last 10 minutes of trading, and we got the topping tail. We had a legitimate breakout. Maybe we just get a back test again. The PY, ETF, and they're pulling back off of these highs. Micron earnings. A legitimate breakout, we'll either keep going or back test and then go on our way. We did get above the 200 here. The 50 got back above the 200, and then the breakout followed. And here it is, our bull flag on the 60-minute chart. Let me show you up close on the 15. The divergence form, and then a gap and trap here, and we sold off, and we've seen this drop, forming a series of bear flags and a larger bull flag. And I was watching to see where we're going to come down to the lower end of the channel here of the bull flag with this bear flag, or were we going to attempt to break out? We attempted the breakout, but we stalled at this upper boundary trend line right here. So again, trend line changes, then this pattern still may have merit. We did get a breakout, and we just back test or even pull back into the trading range and then continue onward and upward, or gap higher tomorrow. Say we recover futures overnight, we gap higher, then again we'll be watching to see if we have a legitimate breakout here. Again, I told you I thought that this pattern would give us an upward move to form those divergences that I've talked about. We sell off on Thursday, but then try to rally on Friday. This pattern still may be under construction, and we just may change the angles here. Trend lines change all the time, so again, I'll be watching to see, did we get a legitimate breakout, or is it a fake out? Do we come back into this area, or do we now go off to the races? How it plays out, I think you've got a pretty good shot that you're going to try to form the divergence on the S&P 500 unless we start seeing indicators all begin to turn bearish. But the PCE data is supposed to be cool, and we could rally or even top on the PCE data. Start to reverse, maybe sell off with Powell next week, or the FOMC minutes, or both. I'm going to be watching this bear flag inside the larger bull flag and see if we've gotten a breakout here or if we turn down and the boundaries start to change. As I've been saying, I still think there is a good possibility that we challenge this high. Peak from last Thursday. Now, as I've been pointing out, again, as we have this high and we sold off here to the 200 period here on the 15-minute chart, momentum has stayed positive on the S&P 500. The odds start increasing that you're going to go try to make a new high and form a divergence on the RSI in the daily and the 60-minute time frame. Again, I showed you right here, and if you do, probably moving to one of these trend lines for our channel, for a parallel channel. Have the same possibility for the RSI in the daily time frame. I told you it could be confirmation of a lower high. There's no requirement we form a divergence, but we certainly could. Again, we turned down. We came back to the 10-period moving average, and we've been bouncing around at 3 sessions ago. We got the inverted hammer there on Monday. Tried to bounce off the 10-period Tuesday and Wednesday here. And again, that has given us that bull flag that I showed you on the 60-minute chart. On the 15-minute chart, we attempted to break out here. We had a bull flag. Here we had a bull flag. And even back over here, we had a bull flag. Back over here, a bull flag. So we've had a series of bull flags. But I told you, again, you still have this potential rising wedge. Now, in the 60-minute time frame, I'm including the shadows and connecting these lines. If you exclude the shadow right here, you've got a really nice looking rising wedge pattern if you just connect the peak over here and here and exclude those shadows. So again, we could be headed up to the upper boundary of that trend line, which again would be one of those channels that I just showed you on the 60-minute chart, the upper channel line here in blue. So that would mean we were on our way up to test that level, and we would form potentially a channel here. We would have one in the daily time frame, but you would also have a potential rising wedge pattern excluding the shadows. So bouncing off the 10, we'll see. If we get traction off the 10, this is where I think we're headed. Still marking this as the head formation because it's the peak so far, but again, like I said, momentum has not changed, so it might be that we head formation complete over here. Again, you have a potential head and shoulders pattern. No guarantee it plays out, but it is a possibility under construction if we peaked here or go a little higher and peak and then begin to come back down going into the July FOMC meeting or the September meeting. Powell's going to be speaking next Tuesday. Again, came off hawkish at the FOMC meeting, reducing the amount of rate cuts, the expected rate cuts for 2024. I told you that was going to happen. Before it happened, I told you it would either go down to 1 or none. Market did not expect that. It has shrugged it off so far. Doesn't mean it will continue to shrug it off. May drive that point home on Tuesday, and also maybe at hawkish, very hawkish FOMC minutes on Wednesday, drive that point home. So again, be watching. Do we get a divergence here forming on the RSI? Do we get a divergence developing 60-minute chart? With our pullback to the 10 period, the MACD has not rolled over. If the rally fails, a lower high, we need to take out the 10 period, moving back, taking out this trend line and the trend lines in the 60-minute time frame that I've been showing you if our high is going to hold. It could also be S&P moves to a new high, but NASDAQ does not. NASDAQ peaked a week and a half ago, 3 sessions after the Fed meeting. S&P peaked on that Thursday, went higher. You have a small divergence between the two, end up getting a larger one. I'll be watching NASDAQ and its topping tail, or you may just get, as I've talked about, back-to-back bearish candlesticks in the weekly time frame. You may get a topping tail, some doji as we got, maybe you get a hanging man or something like that. Sometimes you get back-to-back bearish candlesticks, the daily or the weekly time frame. Had back-to-back candlesticks down here where we had an inverted hammer followed by a hammer. Back-to-back reversal bars. It's very common. See that in the weekly time frame. Maybe we'll see what happens. If S&P, or I'm sorry, if NASDAQ it does attempt to move to a new high, I'll be watching to see if you get back-to-back reversal bars. Again, here's a potential channel. S&P had momentum roll over, but it could just be it just gave us a pullback. And again, we could even get a little divergence in the more recent price action here if we go up and again hit the upper channel line. We close below the upper Bollinger Band, but it's only given us a pullback to the 10-period moving average, not a reversal. Signals still remain bullish. Watching to see if a divergence develops on the RSIs on the 60-minute chart and the daily chart. If it does that change things? Bull flag pattern on the 60-minute chart of NASDAQ, it already broke out of that with the help of NVIDIA and the rebound back up. Well, the S&P moved to new high last Thursday. NASDAQ made a lower high. You already have a divergence. What I'll be watching here is, does NASDAQ make a new high or not with that topping tail? Back-to-back reversal bars in the weekly time frame. That is common. We got a topping tail last week. We'll be watching to see if that high holds or not. And if we don't, if we get a lower high with the NASDAQ and then we turn back down, getting a lower high and a lower low, and S&P moves to new high, you'll have an even larger divergence between the two, which very well could happen. If we move to a higher high, you've got the same possibility that a divergence develops. Over here, we confirmed a lower high and then sold off. But again, with the breakout here, we're getting back above the momentum line, back above the momentum cloud, and we're right below the trending cloud, right below our 50-period moving average here, just moving, closing just, we've been trading just under it and closing just slightly above it there with the close of today's session. So we'll be watching if the rally can continue, and if it does, do we get a lower high or a higher high in form of divergence? Does the S&P and NASDAQ diverge from one another or not? Or they don't have to. Either one has to make new highs. The possibility of divergences with the RSIs on the hourly and on the daily charts. NASDAQ 60-minute chart here. Again, we saw momentum turn back up at extremes, and we're getting this bounce at the lower end of the cloud. Again, we've got a possible channel here. We don't have to reach this upper boundary here, but it is certainly possible that we do. Again, if we connect these levels here to these lows over here, again, you have a nice looking channel. S&P has moved into the positive region. NASDAQ has moved to the extreme region. So again, we'll be watching to see what happens surrounding trading with the Micron after-hour sell-off. We'll be watching as we go into the PCE inflation data announcement before the market opens on Friday. Same thing here on the daily chart. Again, a possible divergence could form here or confirmation of a lower high. You may recall that the January 2022 top for the S&P 500, NASDAQ could not make new highs. It made a lower high and they diverged from one another. Have a divergence back over here as NASDAQ peaked a week and a half ago and S&P did 2 sessions later. We had a 9-9 sell signal. I talked about that earlier in the week in great length and detail and warned you of that coming in the weekend update. Again, we dropped below the 10 period. We're bouncing. We got back above it. We'll be watching to see can we move to a new high or not. You've got a potential channel. You've got a possible head and shoulders, either the left side of the head completing here or not yet done. And then we'll be looking to see if we drop into the July or September FOMC meeting. Do we get a confirmation of a lower high or a divergence? We get the PCE data. As we get the PCE data and the Micron earnings here, I'm going to be continuing to monitor the divergences in the weekly time frame on NVIDIA. On the NASDAQ, got topping tail candlesticks and reversal bars in the weekly time frame last week. They both have these ugly looking divergences. And down here at the stochastic, we'll continue to monitor that. On the log scaling, NASDAQ has that really nice looking rising wedge. And again, we got our topping tail there. And as I bring it up close, my trend line moved on me slightly here because I zoomed in. But you can see the gravestone doji. Again, I'll be watching to see what kind of candlestick we get this week. Do we get another reversal candlestick, a back-to-back reversal bars, rise up and then further and then turn down? Or do we start turning down and close lower by the end of the week? I'll be looking for confirmation this week or next week. And again, it could be we get another reversal bar. Watching to see how we close out the week. Powell next week, making his speech on Tuesday, and the Fed minutes on Wednesday. We're watching this high very closely to see if it holds or not. Nice looking negative divergence on the RSI and on the MACD, and I've talked about it with the awesome oscillator. A potential channel on the linear scaling for NASDAQ. The divergence on the S&P weekly chart. Again, we had a little kind of topping tail last week. Ended up closing back below the trend line here after overthrowing it, which I've marked as a parallel boundary, excluding a slight shadow there. Still have these divergences going on. You can see it on the MACD, you can see it on the awesome oscillator, and in other places. If we go higher, rally to a new high with the PCE data, you could still get a topping tail before the weekends. We'll be watching to see what candlestick forms by the end of the week, watching to see if divergences develop on those 60-minute charts or not. Again, I told you we got that black candlestick at the 50-period moving average on the VIX. I told you we might see the VIX turn down, the S&P try to rally back up. Formed a bull flag. It's now broken out. It's a legitimate breakout. We could still see a divergence develop on the 60-minute chart. We lost a 10-period here on the VIX today, turning down off the 50-period. The VIX making a higher low at the moment. Higher low. S&P's moved to a higher high. There's a discrepancy. We'll be watching. And something worth paying attention to, we have the 10-year Treasury note yield, again, having this channel. Another hollow ray candlestick after this one. We broke the downward trend line today of the PCE data. On Friday, we saw a little bullish divergence form on the RSI at the lows there. And again, rally with the PCE data. I might have said PCI a minute ago with thinking CPI. They got so many inflation indexes. PCE, rally with it. The S&P does form a divergence. Again, we might see divergence produce the reversal. You got Powell next week. You got the FOMC minutes. It's going to make a speech on Tuesday. Nice looking channel here. We could start seeing it tick back up. Expectations for fewer cuts becomes a reality. Fed has said it. The dot plot meeting, but shrugging it off and saying, we don't believe you. We'll be watching it. Again, the 10-year has a negative correlation with the market, and that's why I watch it. There's a dollar. It's already, again, bottomed out. We had the double bottom. We had this channel, nice-looking channel. Big surge today. We'll see if we pull back with the PCE data, but again, the recent breakout of the trend lines here, and then now with the 10-year Treasury note yield, and the surge higher on the dollar, which also has a negative correlation with the market, both suggesting that we could see a reversal very soon on the S&P. My signals remain bullish for now. We did see the momentum line turn bearish on NASDAQ. Momentum signals are not yet bearish. Few gave us a warning of a pullback, which I will show you. I've shown you in this video.